Welcome to Congress in Context.
It's great to be here.
Today we're on a very specific mission. We are going to peel back the layers of a single, incredibly busy Wednesday in Washington, specifically February 4th, 2026.
Right.
We've gone through the congressional record, the floor debates, the legislative text, and, even the stuff that gets filed away that most people never see.
Yeah.
Our goal is simple: to translate all that parliamentary maneuvering, all that jargon, into updates that actually matter to your local community.
And honestly, it was a day that really ran the gamut of what Congress actually does. We saw high-stakes geopolitical strategy. We're talking China, supply chains,
Right.
and then a constitutional fistfight over who actually runs the capital city. And then, buried in the back pages, some incredibly human moments that the cameras completely missed.
So we're going to cover two major legislative battles that really dominated the floor. First, H.R. 4090, which is this massive fight over American money.
Over dominance, as they call it.
Exactly. And second, H.J. Res. 142. It sounds like a boring administrative code, but it's actually Congress telling the District of Columbia, we don't care what your city council voted for, we're changing your tax laws.
But, and this is key, we can't just stop at the votes. If you only look at the yays and nays, you miss, 90% of the story. You have to look at the extensions of remarks.
That's where the real local storytelling happens.
Exactly. Away from the C-SPAN cameras.
Okay, let's unpack this. We're starting with the dirt, literally. H.R. 4090, the Critical Mineral Dominance Act, sponsored by Representative Pete Staber of Minnesota. This took up a huge chunk of energy on the floor.
It really did. And to understand this bill, you have to understand the anxiety that's driving it. This isn't just about digging holes in the ground for commerce.
Right.
It's about the fact that right now the United States is dangerously dependent on foreign nations, mostly China, for the raw materials that power the modern world. We're talking lithium, cobalt, graphite.
The ingredients for everything: EV batteries, your smartphone, medical devices, and crucially, things like F-35 fighter jets.
Exactly. The supply chain is the bottleneck. And so the proponents of this bill, people like Representative Bruce Westerman from Arkansas and Representative Tom McClintock from California, they frame this as a binary choice.
A choice for survival.
Pretty much. Their argument is, look, either we mine it here under our flag or we stay at the mercy of Beijing. Representative McClintock had a line that it really distilled their whole worldview. He said, everything is either mined or grown.
It's a catchy slogan. Very simple. But what does the bill actually do? Because usually when Congress says they're securing dominance, it means they're changing the rules for someone.
That is the key insight here. The bill essentially tries to treat mining projects on federal land not just as commercial ventures, but as strategic necessities. It tries to streamline the permitting process.
Streamline how?
Well, the argument from the GOP side is that our current environmental reviews take so long, sometimes a decade or more, that by the time a mine actually opens, the market's moved on. They want to codify that mining these specific minerals is the highest and best use of that land.
Highest and best use. That sounds like a legal term.
It is, and it's a powerful one. It signals to courts, to regulatory agencies, that if there's a conflict between, say, conservation and mining for lithium, the mining should win.
Because it's a national security issue.
That's the argument. Westerman and McClintock would say we have better labor standards, better environmental controls than the Congo or China, so we have a moral obligation to bring that production home.
So the argument is basically, stop saying not in my backyard, because the alternative is in China's backyard where the rules are way worse.
Precisely. But the opposition, led by folks like Representative Jared Huffman of California and Representative Paul Tonko of New York, they see this very, very differently.
They're not buying the moral obligation pitch.
Not at all. They see H.R. 4090 as a corporate giveaway wrapped in an American flag.
They use that exact phrase on the floor, industry giveaway. What are they worried we're losing?
The bedrock environmental laws, the Clean Water Act specifically. Their argument is that in our rush to beat China, we're going to let multinational corporations, and some of these are actually foreign-owned,
Oh, that's interesting.
turn public lands into Swiss cheese without paying fair royalties to the taxpayer.
That's a sticking point I saw in the notes, the royalty structure.
Right. It's a bit in the weeds, but under the 1872 mining law, which is, it's ancient, but we're still basically operating under it.
Still on the books.
Companies can often extract these hard rock minerals from public land without paying any federal royalties. So Democrats are saying this bill just entrenches that outdated system instead of fixing it.
So on one side, you've got national security and speed, and on the other, environmental protection and fair return.
That is the classic tension. And in this House, speed won. The bill passed 224 yeas to 195 nays.
Pretty much a party line vote.
Very much so.
But before that final vote, there was a specific maneuver that I want to flag because it happens all the time, and it can be confusing. The motion to recommit.
Ah, the MTR.
Yes. It sounds like something out of a bad relationship drama. But in Congress, it's a specific procedural tool.
It's the minority party's last stand. Here's how it works. Right before the final vote on passing a bill, the minority, and in this case, the Democrats, gets to offer one last amendment.
Yeah.
If that amendment passes, the bill is effectively sent back to committee, and it usually dies. If it fails, they go straight to the final vote. But the content of the motion, it's designed to be politically painful.
Painful how?
They pick something that's politically impossible to vote against. So in this case, Representative Ledger Fernandez from New Mexico offered the motion. Her amendment would have prohibited foreign adversaries from mining American resources for free.
See, that's the trap. If you're a Republican who just spent 2 hours giving speeches about needing to beat China, how do you vote against an amendment that bans China from using our land for free?
You can't. That is the 30-second campaign ad just waiting to be made. My opponent voted to let China mine our land for free.
So she knew it probably wouldn't pass.
Oh, she almost certainly knew. The majority almost never breaks ranks on a procedural vote like that, but she wanted to force them on the record.
So did anyone break?
It was close. 209 to 212. It failed, but that margin was much tighter than the final vote on the bill itself. It shows that even in a disciplined party, that tough on China rhetoric makes people nervous about these gotcha motions.
Strategic legislative trolling. You have to respect the hustle.
It's the game within the game, and it shows that legislation isn't just about policy, it's about setting up the next election.
Speaking of setting things up, let's pivot to the second big fight of the day. H.J. Ray's 142. This is all about the District of Columbia. Now, for anyone listening who lives in literally any other city in America, the idea that Congress can just swoop in and overturn your city council's tax law it's wild.
It is unique to D.C. Under the Constitution, Congress has exclusive jurisdiction over the district. They usually let the D.C. Council run things. That's called home rule. But Congress always holds a veto pen.
And on Wednesday, they used it.
They sure did.
This was a disapproval resolution from Representative Gill of Texas. The whole fight was about decoupling. Can you explain that in plain English?
Sure. Think of it this way. The D.C. tax code is usually linked or coupled to the federal tax code. If the feds say, this counts as income, D.C. says, okay, we tax that.
Makes sense. Simpler for everyone.
Usually. But recently, Congress passed these federal tax cuts, which are referred to in the record as the One Big Beautiful Bill Act.
And yes, that is the actual short title in the legislation.
It is. Representative Maxwell Frost from Florida had a lot of fun with that name.
He did.
But the mechanics are serious. That bill cut federal taxes in some specific ways. The D.C. Council looked at those cuts and basically said, wait, if we copy these, our city revenue is going to plummet. We can't pay for schools, for trash pickup. So they voted to decouple.
They said, we're not following the federal changes.
Right. You guys do what you want with federal taxes, but for D.C. taxes, we're keeping the old rules to protect our budget.
So they wanted to protect their revenue stream.
Correct. But the Republicans' Representative Gill, Representative Rose from Tennessee, Jason Smith from Missouri, they saw it very differently. They argued that by decoupling, the D.C. Council was denying its own residents the benefits of those tax cuts. Specifically, they focused on no tax on tips and no tax on overtime.
And that is a potent populist argument. I mean, Representative Rose made that suspicious comparison between a waitress in D.C. versus one right across the river in Virginia.
He did. He argued the Virginia waitress keeps her tips tax-free because Virginia followed the federal law, but the D.C. waitress gets taxed because her own council decoupled. They framed this not as overturning a local government, but as saving workers from their greedy local government.
Which puts the Democrats in a really tough spot. Do you defend the abstract idea of home rule, or do you find yourself defending, taxing tips?
And Representative Frost and Delegate Eleanor Holmes Norton, who represents D.C. but, famously can't vote on final passage, they leaned hard into the democracy argument. Frost argued the federal tax bill itself is unpopular and skewed toward the wealthy, so D.C. was right to reject it. But Delegate Norton made a very practical point.
about the time.
Exactly. It's February, tax season has started, people are already filing. She warned that if Congress overturns this law now, it's just administrative chaos. You'd have to refile, recalculate. It's a nightmare for accountants.
But the House didn't seem to care about the accountants.
No. The resolution passed, 215 to 210. Congress officially told D.C., you are taking these tax cuts whether you want them or not.
It just really highlights that tension. If you live in D.C., your local laws are just suggestions to Congress.
And it raises the question for everyone else, right? We all say we like local control until the locals do something we hate. Then suddenly, federal intervention looks pretty attractive to some people.
Okay, let's take a breath. That was the heavy legislative machinery. But the congressional record isn't just about fighting. There's another layer, the extensions of remarks.
This is honestly my favorite part of the record to analyze.
It's where the yelling stops. And while not spoken on the floor, these are written statements members submit to honor people back home. It feels, I don't know, quaint.
It might feel quaint, but it is so vital. It's the connective tissue between the high-level policy and the actual people. It's how a representative says, I see you.
For instance, Representative Joe Courtney of Connecticut submitted a statement honoring a man named Bob Canova,
A retiree from General Dynamics Electric Boat.
Now, on the surface, this is just a happy retirement card, but when you read it, it's actually a mini history of the defense industry in his district.
It connects the dots. We just talked about H.R. 4090 and national security. Well, Bob Canova is the guy who actually built the national security. It reminds you that defense spending isn't just a line item in a budget, it's a jobs program in Connecticut.
Then we have Representative Zoe Lofgren from California recognizing Stephen Adams, a city manager in King City who was retiring after 43 years.
43 years. That's just incredible institutional memory. Lofgren used this to highlight something we often ignore. The federal government gets the headlines, but the city manager is the one making sure the water is clean.
And the potholes are filled.
Exactly. When a guy like that leaves, a whole community loses a lot of wisdom.
We also saw Speaker Mike Johnson of Louisiana, the guy running the entire show, take a moment to highlight the Congress-Bundestag Youth Exchange.
Which is interesting. The speaker is usually consumed with high strategy, with counting votes, but here he is promoting a soft power exchange program. It's a reminder that diplomacy often happens at the intern level, not just the ambassador level.
And then Representative Ayanna Pressley from Massachusetts used this section for something a bit more political, but still very local. She documented a field hearing in her district about Haitian TPS.
And this is a smart tactic. TPS is temporary protected status. By entering this field hearing into the record, Pressley is taking a local event constituents in a church basement and forcing it into the permanent federal archive.
She's saying you cannot ignore these stories.
Exactly. It connects federal immigration policy directly to the people in her specific neighborhood.
It creates such a contrast. The floor vote on the mining bill was a binary yes or no, but the extensions of remarks allows for nuance and for personal stories.
And frankly, it's where the civility lives. Because if you look at the special order speeches that happened later that night, civility had left the building.
That was the hour led by Representative Adriano Espaillat of New York and Representative Ilhan Omar of Minnesota.
On immigration and IC, the contrast is jarring. In the written remarks, everyone is a hero. On the floor during special orders, everyone's a villain. They were discussing the deaths of Renee Good and Alex Preddy.
In encounters with federal agents, the language was incredibly strong. Representative Becca Bellant from Vermont, Representative Val Hoyle from Oregon, they used words like terrorizing. They were calling to dismantle ICE.
They were. And then almost immediately after, you get the counter-programming. Representative Chip Roy from Texas and Representative David Schweiker from Arizona take the floor to discuss the SAVE Act.
Which is about non-citizen voting.
Right. So you have one side describing federal agents as a terrorizing force, and the other side describing a border crisis that threatens the integrity of our elections. It's like watching two different movies on the same screen.
And yet, they're both speaking into the same microphone for the same permanent record.
And right next to that heated, polarized debate, you have Representative Thompson of Pennsylvania honoring Scouting America.
Bipartisan support for the Scouts, sandwiched between accusations of terror and invasion.
That is Congress in a nutshell. It's a mirror of the country. It holds the extreme anger and the wholesome community service at the same time.
Before we wrap up, we have to hit the morning hour. This is kind of the variety show of Congress.
It's the best. 5 minutes, any topic. Go.
Representative Michael Baumgartner from Washington wins the award for Most Patient Tribute. He stood up to celebrate the 1984 Walla Walla High School girls basketball team.
1984. Wow, that is a throwback.
Yes. Apparently there was some kind of judging error back in the day, and they didn't get their championship trophy for 42 years.
Oh, wow.
So Baumgartner used his time on the floor of the U.S. House of Representatives to say, ladies, you finally got the trophy.
I love that. That's justice delayed, but justice delivered. It shows that for a representative, no issue is too small if it matters to the people back home.
We also had Representative Gil Cisneros from California plugging a toy drive at Paradise Gym in San Dimas.
And he managed to weave in the 100th anniversary of Route 66.
Iconic. And on a more serious note, Representative Kennedy from New York spoke to condemn Islamophobia, highlighting the positive work of the Arab American community in Western New York.
Again, using the platform to define who belongs. Whether it's basketball players or gym owners or Arab Americans, the morning hour is about saying, these people are part of our story.
So we've covered a lot. We've got global strategy for lithium, a federal power move on local taxes, tributes to submarine builders, and a 42-year late basketball trophy.
It's messy, but if you zoom out, you see the themes. You see a country trying to figure out how to survive in a hostile world. That's the mining bill.
Right.
You see a country arguing over where power lies. That's the D.C. tax fight. And you see a country trying to hold on to its community roots. And that's the extensions of remarks.
And transparency is really the only way to navigate that mess.
Absolutely.
And remember, you don't have to take our word for it. You can look up what your representative said about mining or taxes, or if they submitted a tribute to a local hero. The full record for today's date, February 4th, 2026, is available at congress.gov. It's free, it's public, and it's yours.
And here's a question I want you to chew on. We talked about Congress overturning the D.C. tax law. Now, whether you agree with no tax on tips or not, it sets a precedent. If the federal government can intervene in local governance just because they dislike the policy outcome, where is the line drawn for your town? If your city council passes a zoning law or a school budget that Congress hates, are you next?
That is a distinctly uncomfortable thought. Thanks for diving in with us.
See you next time.